You've never held a letter written by a dead man before tonight. Private Samuel Henderson finished his final words at 11:37 p.m., June 2nd, 1864. Dawn would silence his trembling pen forever. "My dearest Martha," he wrote, hands trembling slightly in the flickering candlelight. "If death finds me in tomorrow's assault, know that your beautiful smile sustained me through every nightmare of this endless, brutal war." Across Union camps stretching for miles, 10,000 soldiers scratched identical farewells on precious paper. They pinned addresses outward on their blue uniforms, creating a grim postal system for the battlefield's inevitable harvest of corpses. Cold Harbor wasn't actually a harbor at all, but simply a crossroads tavern where weary travelers once found warm beds and hot meals. Now, this peaceful intersection would become America's most efficient killing ground in history. I am Corporal James Murphy of the 23rd Massachusetts Infantry Regiment. My Springfield rifle feels impossibly heavy tonight. Tomorrow we assault Confederate trenches that look like earth-carved tombstones stretching toward eternity's dark horizon. Support our channel. Subscribe so you won't miss exciting new videos. Your likes and comments inspire us to create more quality content. Together we'll make this channel a place of knowledge and inspiration. Thank you for your support. Lee's battle-hardened veterans had spent precious weeks perfecting their elaborate death trap with mathematical precision. Every single shovelful of Virginia dirt, every sharpened wooden stake, every carefully planned overlapping field of fire designed for maximum slaughter. Lieutenant William Preston carefully sealed his heartfelt letter with melted candle wax, then gently kissed the envelope's rough surface. Inside, pressed carefully between the pages, lay one dried violet from his wedding bouquet 3 years ago. You must understand Grant's terrible mathematics of this brutal war. He could easily replace his casualties, but Lee could not replace his. Human arithmetic alone justified launching attacks resembling organized suicide rather than military tactics. Confederate Colonel Edward Porter Alexander positioned his deadly artillery batteries like a master chess player contemplating checkmate. Each individual cannon commanded specific kill zones, creating precise geometric patterns of overlapping destruction across the open battlefield before them. "Papa," wrote 19-year-old Private Thomas O'Brien in his shaking handwriting, "I'm truly scared, but won't show it to the other men." The older soldiers say courage isn't fearlessness, it's advancing despite terror's iron grip. The tavern keeper's young daughter had faithfully served travelers here for 20 long years, offering hospitality and kindness. Now she watched two massive armies transform her family's peaceful crossroads into what would become history's most predictable massacre. From Confederate trenches, Sergeant Robert Whitman studied the approaching dawn through his rifle's iron sights with veteran eyes. His Alabama regiment had learned defensive warfare's deadly lessons through 3 years of bitter, bloody experience on countless battlefields. I clutch my pen like a drowning man's lifeline tonight. Writing these words steadies my nerves before tomorrow's battle begins. If these words somehow reach home, please remember that love conquered fear's dominion over my trembling heart. Grant paced nervously around his field headquarters, thick cigar smoke wreathing his weathered, determined features. His experienced staff officers harbored serious private doubts, but maintained professional silence about tomorrow's obvious tactical impossibility and certain bloodshed. Private Benjamin Harris from Maine had somehow survived Gettysburg, Antietam, and Chancellorsville's horrors. His letter home contained one shocking confession that chilled hearts. This feels different from other battles. We're walking directly into deliberate slaughter. The Confederate defensive line stretched 7 deadly miles through Virginia countryside, each position carefully sited to support neighboring works perfectly. Basic mathematics favored defense over assault by overwhelming murderous margins that any competent officer could easily calculate. Captain Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr., future Supreme Court Justice, supervised his company's grim preparations with quiet dignity. Even his prestigious Harvard education couldn't rationalize tomorrow's tactical suicide into any form of coherent military sense or strategic wisdom. You can still visit Cold Harbor today during peaceful times. Modern tourists walk these serene fields completely unaware they're treading on America's most concentrated graveyard of tactical incompetence and senseless military leadership failures throughout the entire war. "My beloved Anna," wrote Sergeant Charles Davis in careful script, "I've sewn gold coins securely into my jacket lining for safekeeping. If something terrible happens tomorrow morning, they're specifically for our precious daughter's future education and welfare." Lee strategically positioned his most experienced killers behind carefully constructed earthworks that commanded perfect fields of fire. These battle-tested veterans understood warfare's harsh mathematics perfectly. Prepared defensive positions multiplied firepower exponentially against attacking forces. The Union's famous Irish Brigade had bled white during 3 years of continuous, brutal warfare across multiple campaigns. Fresh replacements filled their depleted ranks adequately, but these green recruits completely lacked veterans' hard-earned instincts for battlefield survival. "I am death itself, waiting patiently in Confederate trenches for dawn's arrival. My rifle barrel gleams menacingly in pre-dawn darkness, ranging Union approach routes with mathematical precision for maximum carnage when the assault begins." Private Michael Sullivan kissed his rosary beads reverently, then carefully folded his final letter with trembling Irish hands. Catholic prayers mixed with Protestant hymns across denominational lines throughout this long night, creating a sacred chorus of faith. The tavern's old wooden clock still ticked steadily in abandoned rooms, counting down precious hours until systematic slaughter would begin. Time itself moved differently when death approached with mathematical certainty rather than mere possibility. General Winfield Scott Hancock studied his impossible written orders with growing dread and professional despair. Political pressure from Washington demanded aggressive action, despite tactical realities that guaranteed unprecedented casualty rates among his beloved men. "Dearest Mother," wrote Corporal David Mitchell in his neat handwriting, "we attack at first light against heavily prepared Confederate positions. I've made complete peace with God above, and now await His mysterious will. You're witnessing history's most predictable military disaster unfold in real time before your eyes. Every single element favored Confederate defense except Union determination to attack regardless of tactical realities, political pressure, or common military sense. Confederate sharpshooters tested their accurate rifles methodically, adjusting iron sights for maximum accuracy at predetermined ranges. They'd carefully marked distances, identified specific kill zones, and prepared for systematic execution rather than conventional combat between equals. Private Joshua Chamberlain, Jr. carried his famous father's heroic reputation into this battle with quiet pride. Family legacy meant nothing to Confederate bullets, but personal honor demanded advancing despite tactical impossibility and certain death. The night carried strangely haunting sounds throughout both army camps, men praying fervently, equipment being cleaned meticulously, letters rustling softly. Veterans recognized these familiar rhythms, the Army's collective preparation for mass dying rather than victory. "I am fear itself, creeping through Union ranks like thick morning fog across Virginia countryside. Soldiers feel my chilling presence but maintain outward calm, writing their final words home with trembling hands and breaking hearts." Lee's military engineers had created a masterpiece of defensive military architecture over weeks of careful planning. Every trench zigzagged to prevent enfilading fire, Every obstacle channeled attackers into predetermined death zones with mathematical precision. "My darling Elizabeth," wrote Captain George Patterson with deep emotion, "I've carried your beautiful photograph through 12 major battles successfully. Tomorrow it accompanies me once more into hell's mathematical certainty and almost certain death." The Confederate defensive works represented 3 full years of tactical evolution through bloody trial and error. Each failed Union assault had taught harsh lessons about defensive warfare's deadly advantages over attacking forces across open ground. Dawn approached with terrible certainty, like an executioner's approach. Union soldiers completed their final preparations methodically. Letters sealed carefully, prayers offered fervently, equipment checked thoroughly, identification pinned to uniforms facing outward for recovery. You stand at history's crossroads tonight, watching tactical impossibility disguised as military necessity unfold before your eyes. Grant's hard-earned reputation demanded aggressive action, despite Lee's obvious defensive superiority and mathematical advantage in this engagement. Confederate artillery commander Stephen Dodson Ramseur positioned his guns with deadly precision across the defensive line. Each individual battery commanded specific approach routes perfectly, creating overlapping fields of mathematical destruction that would slaughter thousands within minutes. "Father," wrote Lieutenant Charles Adams with obvious emotion, "honor compels us forward despite this tactical suicide mission ahead. I've led my men through impossible situations before successfully, but this particular situation feels completely different." The tavern's weather vane pointed north toward Union lines like a compass needle. Soon it would witness America's most concentrated display of courage, meeting tactical impossibility head-on in a brief but devastating encounter that would shock the nation. I am hope, flickering weakly in soldiers' hearts, despite overwhelming evidence of impending slaughter and death. Love sustains mortal men through warfare's most hopeless mathematical equations, when reason fails and duty alone remains as motivation. Private Robert Kelly from New York wrote his wife these final words: "Tomorrow, we charge prepared Confederate positions at dawn. If these words somehow reach you safely, know that duty conquered fear in my heart completely." Confederate General Jubal Early studied his defensive positions through field glasses with professional satisfaction. His battle-tested veterans had transformed Cold Harbor into an impregnable fortress without walls, representing military perfection incarnate through careful planning and preparation. The Union Army's morale had suffered terribly during the Overland Campaign's brutal arithmetic and constant fighting. This exhaustion created fatigue beyond physical weariness, a soul weariness that even heartfelt letters home couldn't heal or diminish significantly. You witnessed 10,000 final farewells being written simultaneously across the darkened camps tonight. Each individual letter represents personal dreams, fears, and loves about to be extinguished by tactical incompetence and military leadership failures. "My precious Sarah," wrote Sergeant William Thompson with obvious affection, "I've saved 3 months' military pay for you and our children. Don't let sorrow consume you completely if tomorrow morning brings tragedy and loss to our family." Lee's defensive strategy expertly exploited every Union weakness while maximizing Confederate strengths through superior positioning. Careful positioning negated numerical advantages through battlefield preparation and tactical intelligence gathered over weeks of observation and planning. Dawn brought thunderous artillery fire, then rifle fire's deadly rattle across the battlefield. In 7 minutes, Grant's assault became history's most predictable massacre. The letters became soldiers' final testimonies to love and duty. I am memory itself, preserving these soldiers' final words across time's relentless passage through decades. Their letters speak louder than official military reports, revealing genuine courage under impossible circumstances that tested human endurance beyond reasonable limits. 7,000 Union casualties fell in less than 1 hour of fighting. Each body carried identification papers, final letters, personal effects, individual stories forever lost in cold military statistics, and official reports that reduced humanity to numbers. The tavern still stands today, now serving as a museum for visitors. Modern tourists read reproduction letters carefully, trying to comprehend courage that faced certain death with unwavering dignity and devotion to duty above personal survival. You hold history in your hands, faded ink on yellowed paper, testament to love conquering fear's dominion, even in warfare's most hopeless moments. These words bridge time itself, connecting past sacrifice with present remembrance and future understanding. Grant would later call Cold Harbor his greatest military regret in his memoirs. But soldiers' letters reveal different truth. Ordinary men facing extraordinary circumstances with remarkable grace and determination, proving humanity's resilience under impossible conditions. I am the last letter, sealed but never sent to waiting families. Inside these pages live voices that refuse silence, love that transcended death's mathematical certainty through words that achieved immortality beyond physical destruction. Private Samuel Henderson never saw his Martha again after that night. But his final words survived, carried home by a surviving comrade who understood love's importance over tactical analysis or military glory. The crossroads where travelers once found rest became America's most efficient killing ground in military history. Yet from this carnage emerged testimonies to humanity's enduring triumph over fate through love, duty, and sacrifice transcending death itself. You've journeyed through Cold Harbor's final hours tonight, witnessing courage that transformed tactical disaster into spiritual victory. Their letters remain our inheritance from that dawn, proving love conquers death through memory and remembrance. These faded pages speak across generations with voices that war couldn't silence permanently. In their words, we discover not just history, but humanity's capacity for love, transcending circumstances that would crush lesser spirits completely. I am the last word written before dawn's slaughter began in earnest. Though bodies fell, these letters soared beyond battlefield mathematics, carrying love home to waiting hearts that would treasure them forever as sacred remembrance. Cold Harbor ended in 7 minutes of systematic slaughter and death. But the letters written beforehand achieved immortality, proving that love conquers even death's dominion over mortal flesh through words preserved across time. You close this final page knowing that behind every casualty statistic stood individual human beings who faced impossible odds with dignity, writing love's triumph over fate in ink that time cannot erase. The letters survived when their writers did not survive the battle. Preserved in archives and family collections, these final words became Cold Harbor's most powerful testimony to human dignity, transcending warfare's brutality and senseless destruction. Today, historians study these personal documents to understand warfare's psychological cost on individuals. Each letter reveals individual stories behind casualty statistics, humanity preserved through ink and paper when flesh failed and hearts stopped beating forever. I am the keeper of these memories, guardian of voices that refuse to be silenced by death itself. Their words echo across time, reminding us that courage has many faces and love finds expression even in war's darkest moments. You walk away from Cold Harbor carrying these soldiers' final messages in memory. Their letters prove that even in history's darkest moments, love finds ways to triumph over fear, connecting human hearts across time and death. The Crossroads Tavern stands empty now, but the letters remain as eternal testimony. In their faded lines, we find eternal truth, that ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances can achieve immortality through love expressed in simple words.